there's one thing I think of when it comes to the GameCube's library, is that there were a lot of games that raised many of fans' eyebrows when it came to certain decisions on behalf of the publishers. And of course, they were all courtesy of Nintendo themselves. The most obvious example would be Wind Waker's art style seeming drastically different from previous Zelda games, looking like a baby game for babies. But also Metroid was in first person now. There were 2 people in a Mario Kart, Star Fox is for some reason an adventure game, and Mario has this weird thing on his back that shoots water, and the whole game is based on water. Obviously we know many fans hate change, and if you were, say, an older fan of Nintendo in the early 2000s during the time the GameCube was popular, I can see why you'd be disappointed. But I think the GameCube's library would make sense in hindsight if you consider what was Nintendo's big name launch title for the GameCube. It was a Mario game that was so left field of the Mario series, it was hard to even consider it an adventure in the franchise. That of course being Luigi's Mansion.
Nintendo.
Here we had a game starring Luigi, who at that point was just considered Player 2 to Mario's Player 1 in Mario games, and even then mostly sat out during the Nintendo 64 era for go-karting and party games, not even showing up in the big Mario game for the system, Super Mario 64. The late 90s were a pretty dry year to be Luigi, and what made it even worse was that initially, Luigi's Mansion was just a tech demo for the GameCube for Space World 2000. It was here simply to show off how better the GameCube looked compared to the previous generation systems, with a bunch of scenarios creeping Luigi out. It looked great, all things considered, and probably got people hyped for what the GameCube would be. But that was it. Luigi was now the mascot of showing off graphics while getting the bejesus scared out of him. What a sad conclusion. Well, it would have been, if the decision to go forward with the new title with what they came up with in this tiny little tech demo wasn't pushed forward with Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka taking the producer chairs, and Hideki Kano as director. The director of such titles as Super Mario Kart, Mario Kart 64, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and Yoshi's Story. At this point, Kano has planted his feet firmly into the Mario spin-off world, and just like with Yoshi, is ready to take Luigi into his first game. You know, ignoring Mario is missing, which the world usually does. Also of note is that Luigi's Mansion would be the final game directed by Kano, as he would take the role as producer for every game he was involved in afterwards. So how did Kano's final directorial role end up? Let's take a look. Luigi, after years of sitting in the back seat of video games, actually is informed that he won a mansion in a contest he didn't enter. And because I guess scammers are just not that common in the Mushroom Kingdom, Luigi intends to join Mario to check it out that evening. He makes it to the mansion to find the place, well, spooky to say the least, while Mario is nowhere to be seen. Luigi instead finds a small professor named Professor Egad in a locked room. Yeah, don't think about it. And after having a small conversation with him, they come to the conclusion that Mario is trapped inside the mansion, and it's up to Luigi to save him. But with a mansion full of ghosts, how is Luigi going to protect himself? Easily, with Egad's invention, the Poltergust 3000, a ghost vacuum that may or may not make Luigi similar to a famous ghost hunting team from a featured film, but at least Luigi's weapon has a way to store the enemies after he catches them, unlike those guys, whoever they were. And so after a bit of training, Luigi heads back into the mansion, ready to find his brother. Now of course, getting into Luigi's Mansion, you'll find out that it plays nothing like a traditional Mario game. I mean, after all, it is a Luigi game. Now it is notable that whenever Nintendo takes on a new genre of video games, their take has to be so unique compared to most of the other titles. Their take on the military strategy game has to involve pretty anime people in a medieval setting with swords and Pegasuses. And their RPG is not medieval at all, it takes place in modern times. Both of them. And now Luigi's Mansion sees Nintendo take on a title they haven't taken on before, the horror genre. After all, Resident Evil and Silent Hill were monstrous successes on PlayStation, so why not bring a little bit of that success onto Nintendo's consoles? Well, unlike those other titles, Luigi is more equipped to handle the situation more than Jill Valentine. In fact, Luigi's Mansion also serves as Nintendo's debut into another popular genre, the fishing genre. As more or less, Luigi's way of catching ghosts is that to fishing a fish. Set up your bait perfectly, reel in as fast as you can, and then pull back on the control stick to catch them. Luigi's Mansion is the horror fishing game you didn't know you wanted. Now, I think I have a good idea on what we conceive as a launch title. A simple title to hold over the fans of the early purchaser of the console until the really good titles roll in. Of course, Nintendo has put out some amazing launch titles that can go toe-to-toe with the later released games as the best games for the system, but of course, I'm not really sure you could call Luigi's Mansion one of the best. I mean, it had like a year of development time after going from tech demo to actual game, but I think if you're going to make a game with the intentions of launch title, Luigi's Mansion is one of the best examples on how to do it. What Luigi's Mansion does right is making the whole game be about boss fights. In almost every room, which stands out as unique from the rest, is that you'll find a ghost that existed as one of EGAD's paintings in his collection that you need to suck up in order to get further into the mansion, with a grand total of 100 health. Now, to make a game full of boss fights especially great is to have all the boss fights be unique, whether it's figuring out how to actually defeat them to their design that you can piece their personality off of, even without any text. Like for example, the first of these ghosts is the dad of the family, who hangs out in the library reading the many books, and also appears to be Nigel Thornberry. Might as well get that joke out. And judging by his location and actions, you can determine that this ghost is a smart thinker and enjoys a good book. And examples just go on, like a granny that enjoys playing pranks, a piano-playing ghost who plays old Mario tunes, and even a ghost dog. But now that I think about it, a majority of these ghosts appear to be human, which is a known rarity in the Mushroom Kingdom. Which, you know, might be a creepy layer of thought that most of the humans of the Mushroom Kingdom died off. Yeah, let's drop the subject. Considering all the humanoid apparitions, this might include the most human cast of any Mario game. Really, excluding the toads used as save points, Shy Guys who are ghosts, and the boos, which we'll get into later, that's about the amount of Mario you'll get in this game, besides Luigi himself. I mean, after all, it is a Luigi game. Which, speaking of Luigi, let's get to him for a second. Now, before Luigi's Mansion, who was Luigi? Not a very established character. I mean, really, outside of the cartoons that weren't produced by Nintendo, Luigi was more or less a clone of Mario, right down to being a palette swap in some games. The most we got was in Paper Mario, released a year prior, and even there, it was through optional diary entries that you probably wouldn't have found out about without a guide of some sort. It's here where Luigi could really be established as a character, and the character I get out of him is a timid coward, but is able to conquer his fear to help out his loved ones. Alongside that, EGAD supplied Luigi with a little device known as the Game Boy Horror, nice name, to help him search over the many things you'll find in this game to get a bit of flavor text, and sometimes you'll get a nice touch, like Luigi commenting on a Toad's spots, to him straight up being an asshole to EGAD right in front of his face, nice Luigi, or even better yet, Luigi commenting on wearing women's clothes. Oh, whoa. Calm down, boy. But when you really think of the positives of Luigi's Mansion, it comes down to the showcase of what the Gamecube could do as a launch title. The Game Boy Horror is straight up an image of the Game Boy Color scanned into the game, and the image quality is actually really great. Then you'll get nice little touches like Luigi's nose bouncing as you walk to this cutscene of Luigi's arm opening the door, which to me still looks fantastic after all these years. And of course, Luigi humming or whistling the main theme as you trek through the game is such a nice touch. A perfect theme to the horror yet humorous adventure you go on. And Luigi either humming calmly or desperately depending on his life meter is such a fantastic addition. Props to the fantastic as always Kazumi Totaka for doing a fantastic job with the music. Now play that glorious Totaka song. So I think you get why I think this game works exceptionally well as a launch title. Little brushes of what the new console can do, a lot of personality, nice little touches, and a gameplay style that will leave a lasting impression in people's minds, all while not making the game very long or complex. It's what made Luigi's Mansion stand out for so many players to make it one of the most beloved single-released games for its time, with a lot of people asking for a sequel. And Nintendo pretty much refused for the longest time. It was a single launch title, and a single launch title it would remain. For 12 years. And then in 2013, in a year dubbed the Year of Luigi, Luigi's Mansion fans finally got what they've been asking for, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon on 3DS. And it's almost like nothing changed. Egad, Haunted Mansion, Luigi with a poltergeist chasing down Ghost. It's exactly what every fan wanted right at the palm of your hands. And then only 6 years later we would get another sequel with Luigi's Mansion 3 on Switch. So the new 10s have definitely fed Luigi's Mansion fans well. But getting back into the first game, I think I honestly love everything about it. Except for one thing. That being the booze. Into the second area, you get into a notably hard section of the game, all because of the placement on how to proceed, which I'm sure stumped all of us. It's here where you unintentionally release all the booze into the mansion. How they got trapped in there in the first place is anyone's guess, but now you gotta hunt for booze alongside the typical ghost hunt. And you know, I get it. You got a spooky Mario game involving ghosts, of course you're gonna have booze in it. But my big problem with them is that trying to hunt them down is just a giant pain. Mainly because there's no lock-on system when reeling in booze, only sucking away at their life force. And they have free roaming abilities on top of that, which means they can float away into the other halls and rooms. And when that happens, you gotta exit the room and give it another go. And when you start this trek, you have to retrace your steps through all the rooms you visited before to capture them. And they got a decent amount of health to tell you the truth, but it's near the end of the game where that health reaches up to 300, and with that amount they can easily escape the rooms no problem, and not all the rooms connect, so sometimes you'll have to go on a wild goose chase just to capture them, and pray hope they don't go down a path that's not easily connected, making you groan in annoyance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely padding to the max, in a game that didn't really need it. If the booze weren't in it, I think I'd almost call it a perfect game, excluding of course all the backtracking. Ugh. Of course, in the last section of the game is where it feels like the developers ran out of ideas, including a ghost that doesn't even appear human but some sort of stock-looking ghost associated with pots, right down to a trio of toy soldiers. I guess I should mention one other factor regarding this game is this game even scary? Well, horror-like comedy is very subjective, but if you're the kind of person who doesn't find the atypical horror movie scary, chances are Luigi's Mansion will not scare you. It even goes for a comedy aspect a bit more, like here where the shadows indicate a shapely woman taking a shower, but move the curtain and oh, it's just a portly lady instead. Guffaw, guffaw. And of course, in my opinion, the funniest part of this game being the ending, which I'll get into in a sec. But don't fret, there's definitely some scares to be had here. Enter a new room with the music silent and one of the ghosts surprising you out of nowhere can get the tingler going. Of course, if jump scares do get you. But one of the more notable scares in this game is after a blackout in the mansion, Luigi enters the telephone room and gets 2 phone calls from a Toad and Egad. And during the call, if the thunder cracks, you'll see a shadow image of Luigi who appears to be hanging. Ooh. But of course, we all know what the true scariest thing in the game is. Just unsettling. But what about this scary thought? In this game, it's implied Bowser, Mario's ultimate rival and enemy, is dead. Sure, they don't use the word dead, but the other words surrounding it, such as Bowser's defeat, makes it sound like he's certainly dead. Mario killed him and his ghost, which is the head of the Boo's King Boo, has come back for revenge. Was he king of something else when he was alive, like King of the Koopas? and this mech he uses in the final battle is simply just the hollow remains of Bowser being controlled by his soul? Yeah, this is an interesting theory that I welcome with open arms. Of course, considering King Boo and Bowser show up side by side in other games makes this theory, well... After the defeat of King Boo and his Bowser mech, which might I add is a fantastic boss fight, you save Mario involving the funniest moment in the game.
Oh, Mario? Mamma mia. Oh, oh,
I honestly can't tell if Luigi's crying tears of joy or tears of laughter. And with all the money you collected throughout the game, which by the way is another factor in playing this game, to eventually get a new home in place of the mansion, built by Egad with all the money and jewelry you found. So I guess Luigi gets his mansion after all, and sadly I only got rank B, and not A. What a disappointment, but hey, at least Luigi finally moved out of Mario's home. If you're interested in this game, I won't spoil all the ways to get a large sum of money for the sake of your playthrough, but the real challenge comes in getting the worst rank, H, which is a simple little tent built on the plot of land where the Haunted Mansion once sat. And to get this rank, you pretty much have to avoid every set you come across. So if you want the real challenge, there you go. After beating the game, you get the New Game Plus mode, or the Hidden Mansion mode, where it simply increases the speed of the poltergust sucks up enemies, as well as the enemies dealing more damage. Quite a disappointment compared to the PAL release that has the mansion mirrored, harder enemies, and the area's final boss fights gaining different patterns. But all that changed in 2018 when Nintendo decided to release a port of the original Luigi's Mansion to the 3DS. Which yes, a 2018 3DS title seems a little too late, but hey, if you want to play a version with the perfect hidden mansion, then this is the title for you. Also, if you found Dark Moon's system of catching ghosts better, then the 3DS version will also be the perfect title. But the original mode is in there too, so don't worry. Luigi's Mansion didn't have big ambitions when it was released at launch, just a serviceable little game starring everyone's favorite player too. And since then, its popularity has grown so much that Luigi's Mansion is a full-fledged series now, actually breaking the mold of being some quickie throwaway title and one of the system's best games to look out for. You honestly can't say that a lot about most launch titles like that.
Jimmy, Jimmy. Yabba, yabba.